and overcome. Bend and be straight. Empty and be full. Wear out and be new. Have little and gain. Have much and be confused. Therefore the wise embrace the one and set an example to all. Not putting on a display, they shine forth. Not justifying themselves, they are distinguished. Not boasting, they receive recognition. Not bragging, they never falter. They do not quarrel, so no one quarrels with them. Therefore the ancients say, yield and overcome. Is that an empty saying? Be really whole, and all things will come to you.
So how are we to understand the whole idea of yield and overcome, bend and be straight? What is Lao-tzu talking about? People who live philosophically, they have no understanding of what it really means to enter into the way. You can't enter into the way with everyday mind, a mind that is in conflict, a mind that is always looking after right and wrong, good and bad, a mind that likes to believe it's right. You have to begin to understand the nature of a spiritual practice. It has nothing to do with logic and reasoning. And that is the great difficulty with the practice, with something that is authentic. We have to, so to speak, bend to be straight, to yield and overcome. These do not mesh with my logic and reasoning as a normal human being, my own psychology. A new psychology has to be born in us to understand the Tao. To understand the Tao and to really get into the flow of it, you have to be able to be prepared to see the bigger picture, to understand the nature of what it means to yield and overcome. So what do we yield to and what are we trying to overcome? If I yield to my mind, I become a slave to it. I become a slave to logic and reasoning. I become a slave to my emotions. But when I am looking at my life from another perspective, when I yield to the heart, which is what Lao-tzu is always talking about, the heart, when you yield to love, you overcome everything in your life. People do not yield. They want to master everything. They want to control things because they think in the control they have some sort of way of making it turn out the way they believe it should, the way they want it to. And that is a terrible mistake because that means we don't have the faith. Faith is not something you have because you believe. Faith is a result of eliminating emotion. When I'm no longer emotional, I am left with the one thing that is most important in a human being's life, and that is faith. It is the only emotion worth having. This faith is a trust, not a belief. I can believe in many different things. I can believe that red is green and green is red. I can believe that 2 + 2 = 4 or believe that it makes 5. It doesn't matter what I believe in. To be authentic, to understand the nature of truth, you have to have another kind of living, another kind of logic. And it is not the one that my mind can understand, and it is not the living my body can do. It is something other than. This logic is about compassion. If I am not compassionate, I will not have the ability to see into things. I will not have the faith. Faith is not an ability to imagine. Faith is the ability to recognize that which has always been true in you. We miss our life and we miss so many things that are important because we're not interested in love. We're interested in passion and what makes us feel as though we're in love rather than being love itself. So when you enter into the Tao, you are entering into something that's so different, so magnificent, much bigger than your mind and your body can hold. We are entering into something that is the essence of life. And it requires a tremendous amount of compassion, of patience. If I am not patient, I will never understand what to yield to. To yield to love is the way. To bend, in other words, bend away from the logic and reasoning of my mind and go to the life that lives within me. This bending is illogical to my thinking, illogical to my psychology, and people cannot do it. Most people would rather stay in the logic and reasoning of hate because hate is very powerful. Fear is very powerful. There is a logic and a reasoning to hate and fear that anyone can grasp. And people grasp it all the time, and they cling to it as though it is the only truth there is. But when you start moving in deeper realms and your life requires more of you and you feel the ability to and the willingness to yield, you will yield to love no matter what it is telling you. And although it will say to you many illogical things, you will follow it with all of your heart, all of your soul, all of your strength. You will start to understand the nature of what it means to love beyond what the mind and body can sustain. And I want you to think about this a little bit in your life. How much of your life has been wasted, just utterly wasted, trying to make emotions fit your lifestyle, trying to make your life around emotion, and never having the faith to see into the beauty of anything that is trying to happen to you. There is a great beauty trying to happen. We don't trust in that. We think that beauty's outside of us. Your beauty is inside of you. Lao-tzu knew this. He knew about the jewel of the heart. He knows about the meaning of life. He sees it as love. And he is never fooled, and we are never fooled, by the delusions of desire, ambition, and pride. There comes a time in everybody's life where they feel like they really need a change in their living. I offer you 3 retreats every year at Mount Madonna that are very intense, simple, yet very effective. They include meditation, Gestalt therapy, some insight work. Come to the website at aspire.org and take a look at retreats. So let's go into the mechanics of this very important sutra. Gain much. What does Lao-tzu mean by if we lose, we gain much, and if we gain much in the world, we become more and more confused? It is true. Our minds are cluttered with so many things that we think we have to gain. We live in a culture, in a society where gain is everything, where much is more and more is much. And the much with it we have is to sustain our life in a way that makes us look like we are better than others. How do you teach humility? It's like teaching a child to ride a bicycle. You show them a two-wheeler. You show a 3-year-old a two-wheeler and say you're going to get on that and you're going to ride it. But the child looks at it and says it is impossible. No way can I do it. They try it a few times and fall and then quit. This is the way most of us are. There are no trainer wheels for this kind of thing. This is what I mean about the Tao. You have to really understand it and feel the appreciation of it and what it's trying to teach. It's trying to teach me something other than what my logical mind can understand. So if I gain much in my life, it'll be because I lose. I let go of things that are unnecessary. I don't live off the periphery of my desires and my pride. Humility is the key. Simplicity and humility. Always remember that in the Tao. It is not about having more and being great, having great notoriety. It is not about that at all. It is about humbleness, being so humble that most people would not recognize what a person in a practice is really doing. We are unassuming, and we work on practicing being unassuming. But that is the key to the whole thing. If I gain much, I get very confused. How do I know what I've gained is enough? And how do I know that it's enough to sustain me in the culture and the society that I live in? What other people think of us is so important to us, we will sacrifice our entire life. I said to you in other programs, being true to yourself is a very important thing. My emotions are filled with fear and hate. And if I make them the centerpiece of my life, then I'm only going to have those thoughts of fear and hate in my living. And I will always be wanting more. The logic of a person in the Tao, someone like Lao-tzu, who is teaching something far greater than what anyone has ever taught in the world prior to this, is about living in compassion and living so simply in that compassion that they see that the less they have, the more they gain on the inside. People want to gain more on the outside and think that it will affect their inside, and they are so wrong. You cannot change your within by altering your without. It won't work. You can have everyone around you love you, but if you don't love you, if you have not reached love inside, what they say will be merely opinion and will never change the gestalt of the way you're living on the inside of yourself. It will never change anything. Real love comes from within. And if you think that having more, having many things in your life, keeping yourself occupied, so occupied you never have to question your own thoughts. You can never see past your own thoughts. If that's the way you have to live, it should be a clue on the inside. Something is wrong. A spiritual path is not a philosophy. It is a way of life. And that way of life has a lot to do with the way we live with love. How do you live with love? Real love. The love that you are, the love that beckons you, that brings you to this moment. How do you live with that love? It's a very difficult thing for most people. They can't live in that. They can live in emotions that tell them about love. They can live in the passion, the hope, the desire about love. But to really live in love, I have to be willing to shed everything, to let go of everything, to bend to the point of almost breaking, to be supple on the inside. In that suppleness, I learned what it is to have the uniqueness of compassion and love. It is only then that I forgive. A lot of our problems in this life are just based on the whole idea that we don't have enough compassion to be able to develop a consciousness. Not a conscience, but a consciousness. Conscience is what happens with emotion, but consciousness is what happens with love. When I'm in love, I have consciousness. I am able to see the broader picture. How do you live in love? To gain is to be confused. To become less is to be aware. How many people just want to live chopping wood and carrying water? Just living a simple life. Allowing things to come and go in and out of our life. Watching. Just watching. Not wanting anything else but what is happening now. These are difficult things for most of us. And that's why we have so much difficulty in our life. Because we insist on knowing what is going to make us happy and eliminating what will give us love. There's so much to the three treasures of the Tao, and I'm sure you didn't get everything that I offered here. So I go into the studio and I make very, very important CDs for you. They have all of the discourses I've offered to you here on TV, but also much more in depth. And I think you'll find them very beautiful and very meaningful. If the Tao is to your heart's content, which it is, I think you'll want to order these right away. Go to my website at aspire.org and order yours today. Now back to Aspire. So the essence of all of this is for me to learn how to become one, for you to become one. This is the wholeness that Lao-tzu is talking about. What does that mean? What are we talking about being whole? It is not about fighting my elements. Most of us fight our elements. We're always in conflict with ourselves. One part of us wants something, another part isn't sure. One part of us isn't sure about what we want, the other part is sure. We go back and forth. Look at the conflict you're in constantly. The people you meet, the things you have to do, the responsibilities you have. Most of us are always in conflict with our work, with our families, with our friends, with ourselves mostly. And that conflict is due to desire, too much ambition, too much pride, too much neediness, too much ideas that say to us, hey, if you get what you desire, all of your problems will be gone. This is simply not true. None of this can ever be true in my life. Desire never changes anything, but to become whole, to sacrifice my entire life for the sake of attaining to wholeness is what it's really all about. And you would ask me, why would you do that? Why would you even think of doing that? What would you sacrifice? My vanity, my pride, my arrogance. I would sacrifice even my knowledge, any knowledge I would have, to become so simple, to become so available, to yield and actually overcome, as Lao-tzu said. And then he said something so beautiful and so true. He said, if you yield and you become one, you overcome yourself. Everything that is beautiful will come to you. Imagine that. Everything that is beautiful will come to you. We can't trust that because we have no faith. You can't believe what that means because too many emotions are biting at you. One emotion said, oh, I'd love to believe that. Another emotion says, oh, I don't believe it because there's nothing to prove it. And so this conflict goes on back and forth, dividing your being, dividing your energies, dividing everything that you're about. And that's why everything that is beautiful can't come to you and me. It can't come to us because we're so busy wanting what we think we should have and what we think is beautiful, and being in conflict even about that to such a degree that nothing can happen. We live taking the meager amounts of beauty that we see around us and calling that our life. Do you know that there is great beauty in you? And that great beauty pursues you in every way, shape, and form in this life. The only reason we don't know this beauty, we don't experience it, is because we have no faith. Faith is the ability to see through all of the demise of our fears, our anger, to go beyond the human expression, the human experience, and to see things just as they are. Beauty comes to you in many different ways. Sometimes it's in the rarest, most simple forms, and other times it becomes very complex. Beauty is the feel of yourself as one. This oneness that I speak of is the answer to everything in your life. But the problem is we're so infatuated with the idea of conflict. And we pride ourselves on being in conflict, thinking that we're being fooled by being in the oneness of it all, that we never allow ourselves to know the beauty of our life. Again, there is nothing I could say to you in this series that would talk you into this. I'm not giving you a philosophy. I'm actually giving you nothing but how-tos, the way to pull back and to look and to see the bigger picture of your life. There is nothing I can say that will help you believe in any of this either. You have to be of the elk inside to want nothing with all of your heart. A Zen saying that has persisted all throughout my life, that in emptiness is meaning. But until I am willing to experience that hollowness and be filled by emptiness, I will never know the meaning of my oneness with life. And I will constantly chop away at my ability to be at one with this life, which is the great energy of love. And I will never know the beauty otherwise. It's sad to think that we have lived so long without beauty in our life. We lived in contempt of beauty, and we live in the pride of an accomplishment of cynicism that never brings us to anything but humiliation in the end of our life. I do a lot of hospice work, and I can tell you that that humiliation is the way we go into the next life, and it can be unbearable, and it definitely is unnecessary. Please forgive me. Namaste.